And it goes back to the question I had. How do you train yourself to have that reaction instead of the natural reaction, which is, get out the door. It's like, here, I'm playing the sheep for you. Now go.
Yeah.
So that feels faster. It feels faster
Yeah.
to go do the thing for the kid.
Yes.
But now you're signing up to do the thing for the kid
every single time.
Welcome back to Raising Men. Today on the Raising Men podcast, we're joined by Jody Hill. She's an author, a speaker, and a parenting sidekick. Jody is the author of the best-selling book, The Parent's Secret Superpower, and her message is simple and powerful. The words parents use to speak to their children shape the way that those children see themselves and their future. Jody, welcome to Raising Men.
Thank you so much for having me on. I keep hearing about you and your name keeps popping up and I'm like, this is a man whose mission I can get behind. So thanks for having me, even though I am not a father.
Well, that is so kind. But you do have boys.
I do have boys.
I think that the challenges that mothers face about raising men are actually more relevant and a lot more difficult than the ones that men face, because I at least have the experience of once having been a boy, and my wife does not.
This is correct.
So, I'm a parent. What is my secret superpower?
Your secret superpower is something you already have. And I think that is where a lot of us parents can miss it. We think, oh, I have to attend this course. I have to read all these books. I have to do all these things. Like, what do I not have that I need to be a great parent? And what I talk about is it's something that you already have. And it's your words. Your words are the greatest tool and the greatest asset that you have to change the trajectory of your child's life. And that is what I help parents do. I help them realize the power and actually how to use it.
I love that. So give me some examples of how the everyday words that parents use, both positive and negative, shape the identity that our children carry into adulthood.
Yeah. Well, I think something really important to keep in mind as we are on this journey called parenting is that when you have a belief about yourself, what that does is that establishes your identity. And once you have an identity of who you think you are, that impacts how you show up in the world. So if I believe that I am not smart, I can't do hard things, that I'm a problem child, that I'm too much, when I walk into a room or I face a circumstance, how in the world do you think I'm going to show up? Am I going to show up there being like, I'm going to figure this out. There's something challenging here, but I know I can work hard enough to figure it out. Or I believe that I can do hard things. Like, or are you going to walk in just being like, I'm the dummy. I'm not important. Nobody sees me. Nobody cares. Right? So that impacts how you show up in life, which impacts where your life takes you. And as parents, we are the biggest influence in our child's life. We are the one that when they come out of the womb, they're crying and they're screaming, and we are the one that nurtures them. We are the first ones to speak to them, to take care of their survival needs. And so we have this beautiful opportunity starting at birth all the way through their 18 plus years to impact our children. And so what I love, there's this scientist named Masaru Emoto. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I have. My wife literally 4 weeks ago, went to one of his events.
Oh gosh, that would be epic. Okay, I have not done that, but I have heard of this man. And for those of you who are listening who have not heard of him, so he is this scientist, and he did this experiment where he took dirty, polluted water out of a river, lake in Asia, and he separated it into two categories. So, one subject test group, he spoke positive words, intentions, thoughts, froze the water. The other test group of this water, he spoke negative words, negative thoughts, negative intentions, all the things, froze it. And then what he did is he looked at the water crystals, frozen water crystals under a microscope. And the results were incredible. So, okay, I have to show you. I've got private plug, unashamed plug of my workbook. So I created a playbook for audiences. I'm actually going to show you a picture for those of you who are watching this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. So check this out.
Wow.
You have like the words amazing grace, and you got this like beautiful thing. You have the word angel, like beautiful signal, right? Or you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then you disgust me. Like, look at that. It is just a blob of blobbiness, for lack of a better word. And so you're looking at these water crystals. Like another one is you fool. And it's just nothing compared to the beautiful like crystals that are shown by
Yeah.
positive words, intention, and music, right? Okay, so think about this. What is the percentage that our bodies are made of? It's like 65%.
Yeah.
And did you know that children's bodies actually have a higher percentage of water? That's a fun fact. So if our words and intentions can impact water in that way, what are our words and intentions doing on the physical bodies of our children, which also has a mental impact too? How you feel impacts your brain. What you
Yeah.
think impacts your body, right? It's all connected. And so I just got on this journey of like, how can I impact my kids? Because our words are incredibly powerful. Growing up, my parents had us memorize Bible verses and stuff like that. And one of the one is like the tongue has the power of life and death. And I always thought that, oh, yeah, watch what you say. You've got life and death. But it's like, what if there actually is life and death in the power of your tongue? And as science backs that up, it's like, man, we actually have power in our words to impact the physical bodies of people. So I got on this journey where I was like, okay, what can I do to speak positively to my children?
Well, and our culture is becoming so much more coarse. I think
Mm,
because of the impact of a lot more anonymized communications or a lot more arm's length communications. You say things on Facebook that you or people say things on Facebook that you would never, ever, ever say
face to
face to
face.
face.
100%.
You'd be
100%.
taking, you'd be putting yourself in physical danger in a lot of cases
Mhm.
if you did that.
Mhm.
And you see amongst people that spend a lot of time online, their person to person, face to face interactions also become more coarse.
Mm.
They say things to, they start to say those sorts of things in face to face interactions or over
Yeah.
text or something like that, that mimic the way that they interact online. And that is toxic.
Yeah.
And in exactly the same way, whether or not there's an actual physical impact, the way that that experiment you talk about demonstrates, or whether the impact is purely intellectual or and emotional,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I, I, I
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a story when I lived in Chicago. I met a young man. He was 26 years old. He lived in kind of the bad part of Chicago, and he had started a hair salon. He was a former gang member
Wow.
and was, in that kind of life. And he decided to get out of it. And he decided to start a hair salon in the bottom floor of this apartment building. And it was tremendously successful. The place was packed. He was renting out all, I think, 8 of his bays inside the
Mm.
salon. The store next door was vacant. and he was in negotiations to expand into that part of the store as well,
Wow.
start a spa in that
All
part.
right.
He
All
was
right.
crushing it. And one day, an inspector from the city of Chicago showed up and walked in his door and said, "Where's your permit?" He said, I don't have a permit." He says, "Okay, I'm going to have to shut you down until you get a permit." And so this
Jeez.
guy was like, "Oh, well, the man came and shut me down. And, I guess I'll do something else." He built this business over 2 years. He built this thriving business. Now, if that happened to you or that happened to me, we would feel indignant. We would feel, well, this is unfair. And I'm going to
Yeah.
go, I'm going to go march down to City Hall and get this resolved. And, we would feel that that's not the way that life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But this guy, his whole sense was like, yeah, I mean, eventually the lawnmower comes to cut the tallest blades of grass.
Hmm.
And so he was talking to his landlord, and his landlord didn't want to lose the revenue from the hair salon. And so he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to pay rent anymore. And the landlord's like, well, you have a lease. You have to pay rent. And what is this garbage about the city coming and shutting you down? He says, well, I don't have a permit. He goes, well, what's it take to get a permit? Guy's like, I don't know.
I don't know.
And so the landlord starts making phone calls and doing all this stuff. He has the reaction we would have.
Yeah.
And he finds out that to get a permit, you have to go to City Hall. You have to stand in line in this one particular line. You have to give them a money order for $80 and you get a permit right then and there. You could be
Wow.
open tomorrow.
Wow.
And so the landlord figures this out. He calls the kid back and he says, listen, here's what you have to do. Go to a 7-Eleven, get a money order, do this, gives him the whole checklist, sends him to City Hall. And he did that stuff, he had the permit, put it up on his wall, and he was open the next day.
Hmm.
But the kid, if he hadn't had that interaction, if he hadn't had somebody in his life, which, by the way, before this moment, he had nobody in his life who would tell him, this is unjust, go make it right.
Wow.
But he did in this particular case. And in fact, it was sort of the landlord's selfish interest that
Yeah.
made him do that,
Yeah.
but he did it. And
Yeah.
so the kid was back up and running and his business was, again, thriving. He was able to expand into the next store and he didn't have to go back to the life.
Wow.
And it's just purely, and this is, when people talk about privilege, right? And, people who grew up in wealthier households obviously have a lot more privilege. The nature of that privilege, some of it is wealth. Some of it is you get to graduate without student debt. Those sorts of things. Those are real and impactful.
Sure.
But the vast majority of it is what you're talking about.
Right.
Is the state of mind
Yeah.
that gets set up by a lifetime of framing your world as you are worthy of
Yeah.
life's challenges and you are worthy of the benefits that accrue to you personally as a result of meeting those challenges
Right.
and succeeding in the world.
Yeah.
And that, if there is one job that we have in raising men, especially, that's it, to
Yeah.
communicate and convey that state of mind. When my son turns 18, if he has that state of mind and he expects to win and he believes himself worthy of winning,
Mm.
I've succeeded. And if he
Yeah.
doesn't, I've failed. It's that simple.
Yeah. And what is so beautiful as parents, as just as the landlord was to this guy, we get to be that to our kids.
Right.
We get to show them what is possible. We get to help them believe that, hey, when you get in a situation that's you feel stuck, it's not the end. There's resources and ways to figure out how to get unstuck. Ask for help. You can do this. Don't just accept it, right? And so we get to shape that in our children. And it just starts as they're small all the way through 18 and even beyond.
So let me ask you this. For me, one of the things I really, really struggle with is making these sorts of comments reflexive. Oftentimes, my son comes to me and he asks me, can I do X, Y, and Z? And my reflex is to say no. Right? No, that's a pain for me. I have to now do all this stuff in order to
Yeah.
enable you to do this or whatever. And
Yeah.
oftentimes my reflex is to do the thing on your don't list. And we'll get to the do and don't list here in a minute. But how do I cultivate the reflex inside myself to make sure that I'm doing the positive stuff as opposed to the
Right.
negative stuff?
Right. It just takes practice. And, I think a really great example of like we do the things that we don't want to do is like, for example, you know, our child comes home and we're looking over their paperwork, right?
Yeah.
And we see that they got a B plus. And so we're looking over their answers. And what do you immediately want to go to like problem solve and troubleshoot?
The
You
wrong
want to
answer.
go to the things that they did wrong,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, "Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Why'd you get that wrong?" Right? And so it's a practice of retraining because what gets attention gets repeated, right? And so what I want to do is when I'm going through their schoolwork, I'm like, "Wow, look at all those answers that you got right. I can see your work here on the side, and I'm so proud of you for taking the time to work that out and figure that out. Oh, let's look at this one that you didn't get right. Do you see what happened here? Like, what can you do better?" And there's no shame, there's no judgment. It's just like, walking through it with them. And that takes practice because most parents want their children to succeed and get better, right? And so the easiest way that we think we can do that is point out everything that they're doing wrong so they can fix and change those things and get better. Like that's the natural default, right? Is point out the wrong things. And my encouragement to all parents who like we feel like that's their default, like the children does a chore, they make their bed and we come in and the first thing we want to do is like critique what they've done. Like, all right, you need to pull this corner a little bit tighter. You missed this on the floor is to stop and pause and be like, what can I say first that encourages them and builds them up?
Hmm.
So it's like, wow, you did such a good job pulling those sheets really well and getting all your stuffies on the bed. All right, so next time let's work on throwing your dirty underwear away in the laundry basket that you just left on your bed, or hey, you did a really good job like sweeping under the table there and the chairs. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for your hard work. I see here under the kitchen ledge that you actually missed a couple spots. Can you grab the broom and go back and get that? And that does a few things. One, they're like, yes, I did a good job here, and I'm not a constant failure to mom or to dad. And then two, what that does, and I just lost it. Oh, two, what that does is it shows them that you are a safe place to fail.
Yeah.
They're not going to get shamed. They're not going to get punished. They're not going to get, reamed out for making mistakes because to be human is to make mistakes. And mistakes are actually our greatest learning opportunities. But if our children don't feel like they can make mistakes around us and that we are constantly judging them and going to shame them and rub it back in their face and, oh, here you do it again. You did a really crappy job scooping the litter. Like, how is that going to motivate them to change or be better or try harder? Like, it's not, it's literally going to squelch them down.
Yeah.
So that is a great practice is when you see something that you want to speak to that could be a little bit better, pause and be like, what can I affirm first before I offer that correction out of a kind heart and then affirm them again on the end. It's like the compliment sandwich, right?
Yeah. You know, I have accumulated a bunch of principles
Ooh,
through the process of this whole project. I'm accumulating principles, and I'll ask you for one at the end. I'll warn you that I'm going to do that.
let's
You're the
do
only
it.
person who's ever gotten a warning, by the way.
Yes.
But one of the principles that I've uncovered in this process is that excellence is failure.
Hmm. Explain more.
So the only way to excel is to do something, to identify the ways in which you miss the target, and then improve those things.
Yeah.
And you never actually succeed. You just fail a little bit less. It's an asymptotic relationship towards going from large failures to small failures.
Yeah.
So, you're shooting at a target. And at first, it's hard to even hit the whole target. And then
Yeah.
gradually, you get closer and closer and closer to that bullseye to the point where people at the very elite level of the game, it's very unusual for them to hit anywhere but the bullseye.
Right.
But how many times did they not hit the bullseye and
Right.
lead up to that?
Yeah.
Way more than the number of times they hit the bullseye. And
100%.
I remember watching Tiger Woods play golf one time. He was having a terrible round. And so afterwards he goes to the driving range, and he is just visibly angry with himself, and he's talking to his caddy, and he's hitting the ball, and he's hitting the ball, and he's hitting the ball. He's just so frustrating that he's playing so poorly. And he was hitting, I don't know, a pitching wedge or something like that to a flag 120 yards away, and the balls were all landing within 4 feet of each other. Now, if I were to hit a golf ball, if I were to hit 10 golf balls and they all landed within 4 feet of each other, I'd be elated.
Yeah.
And Tiger Woods was incensed with himself.
Hmm.
And so that's what it takes to be excellent. You have to embrace failure. You have to look at it as an opportunity to, oh
Yeah.
wow, this is my chance to
Yeah.
to to correct something.
Right.
And the only way you can cultivate that in your children is to make them feel like successes and then make them feel like that's the default thing. The default thing is that you succeed. Now,
Yeah.
now that you know that you're a succeeder, a winner, now let's look at all the places where we're not winning as much as we should.
Right. Yeah. Like what else? Yes. 100%. And I think it's so important too. I think a lot of parents in this generation, like we love our children and we don't want them to fail. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't like it when they're hurt. We don't like it when they're sad. So whenever we see any of that, we just want to swoop in and stop their tears. Like, stop crying. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. And, and then we just do the hard thing for them.
Mhm.
But what that does is that actually robs them of gaining the confidence that they need through that challenge or through that mistake, right? And, I love this story of I remember my daughter, it was time to go, like getting 4 kids dressed up out the door. I had 4 kids within the span of 5 years. So like littles, right?
Yeah.
And it's a win if we can get out the door. I mean, I like to be early for everything. So I'm like, we need to get out the door. My oldest daughter is learning how to tie her shoe and she is like crying on the floor. So I have a few things going in my favor or against me actually, where I'm like, I need to get out the door. I have a crying child. We just need to get her shoes tied. Like this is the obstacle right now. So what I wanted to do was come in and just tie her shoe for her. Done. No more tears. You're okay. You're good. You're good. Let's go. But what that opportunity was is an opportunity for them to learn, her to learn. And so push pause on all of the chaos in my mind. I'm trying to get out the door. And I just sat next to her and I was like, girlfriend, I see that you're really upset about not being able to tie your shoe. She's like, yes. And empathy, that's so important, right? Anytime a kid is triggered, sad, upset, angry, frustrated, like empathy goes so far. So I'm like, I would be frustrated too. I remember when I was learning how to tie my own shoes, I got frustrated. And then I said, I know you can do this. You can do hard things. Do you want me to show you how to do it again? Like, yes. So I showed her, I walked her through it, and then I was like, okay, now you try. And she did it. And she was thrilled and she was pumped. And then like that just gave her such a confidence and like this muscle like marker in her brain, like this marker in her brain where like, I know I can do this. I've done this before. Mom was there cheering me on. I've got this. And so then when she comes up on that obstacle again, then she can do it. And the thing is when we try and step in and rob our children of that, it can communicate to them that mom doesn't think or dad doesn't think that I'm capable of doing this. And so that is one of the superpower strategies that I talk about in my book is like, don't rescue them from that challenge. Don't rescue them from that mistake they made. Like these are learning opportunities.
Big time. And one of the other things that was understated in the story that you just told is, and it goes back to the question I had: how do you train yourself to have that
Yeah.
reaction instead of the natural reaction, which is get out the door? It's like, here, I'm gonna apply your
Yes.
sheet for you. Now go.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that you kind of have to intellectually understand is that that feels faster. It feels faster to
Yeah.
go do the thing for the kid. But
Yes.
now you're signing up to do the thing for the kid
Every
every
single
single
time.
time. And
Yes.
so and by the way, you're not only signing up to do that thing for the kid, you're signing up to do a whole bunch of other things for the kid because you've just communicated to them that they're
Yes.
incapable of doing
Yep.
things that are outside their comfort zone,
Yep.
as
Oh my
opposed to
gosh. Yeah.
communicating that they're more than capable of figuring stuff out.
Yes.
Let's just sit down and do it. So the fact that
Yes.
you took the extra 2 minutes when you were rushed to do to communicate that actually saved you time, not only in the long
Yes.
run, but it also saved you. If I had done that, if I had done the natural thing to my
Yeah.
daughter, she would melt down.
Yeah.
I would have a difficult time getting her in the car. I'd probably have to pick
Yep.
her up and carry her. She would
Yep.
not be able to buckle her own seatbelt, so I'd have to
Yep.
do that for her.
Yep.
She would not be cooperative when we got to daycare or wherever we were
Yeah.
going, and
Yep.
so then it would be it would cost me way
Yes.
more than the 2 minutes it would cost me
100%.
to sit down and get her to tie her own shoe.
100%. And this is actually a great example. And I have something that I want to say about the end result. But while you're saying this, like, this is such a great example of why we get behavior that we start to label,
Mm,
like terrible twos. Okay.
mhm.
This is a perfect example. Yep. She's crying on the floor about her shoe. She's in this terrible two phase. And so we believe that. We show up with that. We don't show up with how we actually want to show up in parenting with our children. And so we get the exact behavior that we don't want in the first place because we're believing it. That's another superpower strategy in my book, where it's like stand against those beliefs. Because when you believe something, you're going to start looking for it to prove yourself right. So, like, yep, my child is in the terrible twos. Or as opposed to if you just were in that situation, saw it for what it was, then you're able to show up in a calm way and you completely eradicate all of the fallout, you know, that you
Yeah,
just listed. And that's what makes me think that what I was going to say is, and you're like, how do we do that in those moments? And I think it's a constant reminder of like, what is the end result that I want with my children? Do I want children to be reliant on me for everything? Or do I want to equip and empower them? And equipping and empowering them, it's slower and it's longer. I cannot tell you how many times with each of my four children, I have sat on the floor with them with a little dustpan and a broom, helping them learn how to do it. Oh, you missed a spot. Okay, hold this down. Like so painstakingly, right? But now my kids are 7 through 12. When they spill something on the floor, they just go get it and clean it up. I'm like, all of my work is paid off, right? You got to think about the end result, the long term goal, not the in the moment. Let's just get out the door and have her stop crying.
right. Yeah, yeah. Try and think long term.
Yeah,
Okay, so you've touched on something which is a hobby horse of mine, and I'm really interested to talk about it, which is there ever an appropriate use of shame?
I don't think so.
I
No,
don't either.
I
And
think
yet
shame is like the lowest level of, so there's all of these, and let me say this real quick. There's all these levels of emotions and there's frequencies to them, like scientifically tested, right? Shame is the very lowest and it's near death. I don't think shame is appropriate at any point. Right. What are you going to say?
and yet it's such a reflex.
Yeah, it can be.
It's such a reflex. It's almost that's one of the things that comes naturally, and maybe it's a cultural thing because we were brought up in in a culture that where that was a much larger component than it is today. But the reflex is, why didn't you do that right? Or you need to eat your vegetables, or to make
Yeah.
them feel shame. And I think it's almost like you're a comedian telling a dirty joke as opposed to a clean joke, and so it's
Mm,
way harder to be a comedian that only tells clean
right.
jokes, but and it's a little bit of a crutch oftentimes to fall down into vulgarity.
Yeah.
Shame is maybe the vulgarity of parenting.
Mm,
right? It feels easy, but it's in the long term, it detracts from any significant messaging,
right.
and it's a problem. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's almost like that can be your touchstone. Anytime you're trying to make your kid feel ashamed, you are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And
Like,
just do
how
the
does that
opposite
work
of
for
that.
you?
Do the George Costanza, I'm gonna do the opposite of every single one of my impulses, because that
Yeah.
impulse is backwards.
Right. I mean, how does shame work for you, right? So say you said something to your child and your wife comes up and she's like, Shaun, why did you talk to him like that? What were you thinking? Like, does that encourage you to be a better dad, to be a better father? Like, no. So why in the world would that be effective on our children who don't even have like the logical processing of their brain because it's not even developed till they're like 21,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, how can I meet them in this space where there was a mistake? Maybe they even did something intentionally wrong. How can I meet them in the space that encourages them to do better? And that's the job that we get as parents, to try and not shame and control, but offer love. And I'm not saying like they can do whatever they want and it's okay. That's not what I'm saying. Please do not hear that. But there is a safe way to help guide and correct our children instead of just heaping shame and condemnation on them.
Yeah. One of the lessons that I've had and especially in this project, was just being a dad at all, is a lot of it is all about managing tensions. And so I'm always, whenever I see, oh, okay, that's one way to go. What's the tension of that? And so what is the tension here? Is there a way to take it too far? Or, you're too positive, or you're too, what can go wrong here?
Well, I think if it's done with right motivation and right tools and skills, you can't do it wrong.
Yeah.
If you have a motivation of control and manipulation, then the result, like you get in what you're gonna get out, right? The results of that are not gonna be positive. And so I think I think there's a balance. So don't hear me say, we're just going to build up our kids. You're the smartest kid in the room. You can do anything that you want. Well, honestly, like, I don't think you're going to be a rocket scientist. I don't think you're going to be the NA basketball, right? But it's putting a reality to that while encouraging them. Like, I know that I have seen you go after things, and when you work hard enough, I have seen you excel. Total truth.
Yeah.
Gives them that encouragement, but not unrealistic unrealisticness. I don't think that's a word, but it is now.
Unrealism?
Unrealism,
Yeah,
unrealistic
yeah,
expectations, whatever.
right.
So I think that's the balance. And because we don't want to create this culture where kids just think they're going to be awesome at everything. And then when they step out of the house at 18, they fail at something and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was smart. I thought I could do everything. And what is happening? And they don't know how to recalibrate and navigate that because they've just been told their whole life that they're amazing, which they're not because they're human.
Okay, I have 2 specific situations that I would love to get your advice on, that are related to that. The first one is about a week ago. I was talking to my son. He's 7 years old. He's in 1st grade. And he was worried about getting into 2nd grade and being bullied. He's got a little bit of a bully at his school who gives him a hard time.
Mm,
And we're trying to figure out how to manage that.
yeah.
And so he was worried about something that's gonna happen in a year maybe. And I said, "All right, well, let's role play that." I thought, "Oh,
Mm,
wow, I'm being a really smart dad right here because we're gonna role play this situation." And so we role played it. Okay, imagine I'm the bully, or sorry, you're the bully and I'm you. And so I'm walking into school. What do you say as the bully? And he goes, "You suck." And I said, "Okay, why do I suck?" And he goes, "Because you failed at that spelling test that one time in 1st grade." So he was talking about something that happened recently. And I said, all right, back up for a minute. What are you talking about? What are you talking about failing a spelling test? And he broke down into tears.
Oh,
And because he had failed the spelling test. And so I was asking what happened. And it turned out that it was a word that he'd never seen before in his life. And he was asked to spell it in the spelling test, and he got it wrong. And um, I think the word was weird. And he didn't fail the spelling test. He got one of the words wrong. So we got a 9 out of 10 on the spelling test. But it turns out, and I didn't even know this, it turns out that he, in the entirety of his school career, had never missed a single spelling word in his life.
wow. All right.
And he was in tears because he
Oh,
felt like a failure.
buddy.
And he said, well, but Everly's never gotten any questions wrong. Like,
Mm.
okay, Everly's not you, man. And I don't know if she's as good as you as math. I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're not comparing yourself to Everly. You're comparing yourself to how
Yeah.
well you can do. And by the
Yeah.
way, the fact that you've only ever gotten one spelling word wrong in your entire life is amazing.
Yes.
Like, and I told him a story about the time that I misspelled said and
Oh.
in first grade, same sort of thing. And,
Oh.
but he has, so I felt pretty good that I gave him the mental state of feeling like he should be succeeding on spelling tests. But that created so much. On the other hand of it,
Mm.
the tension of that is it created a ton of pressure for him
Yeah.
where he felt when he got one question wrong, he felt like a failure.
Yeah.
So how do we manage that tension?
Right. That's a great story. And I love how you shared with him, like, hey, dude, I got a word spelled wrong too. Like, and look at who I am today. Right. So I think in that case, it's so important to not praise just the result. Like, hey, good job on your spelling test. You got all 10 right. But praise the effort, right? Like, hey, buddy, I see how every week that you go over and review your spelling words and I see how hard you study. And I'm so proud of the effort that you put in.
Yeah.
And praise the effort over the results, right? Because, I mean, honestly, when it comes to school, results are kind of crap anyway. Like, how well did you memorize and regurgitate the
Who
facts? Like, does
cares?
that
Yeah.
mean that they've actually, like, whatever? Don't get me started. But our kids, 100%, especially in like a school environment, they can put so much focus on grades. And that, if they get an A, then they equate that to like, to what? I'm smart.
I'm worthy.
And if they don't reach that, yes, then what is the negative message that attaches to that? So our job as parents is we get to be like, hey, I just want you trying your hardest. Did you feel like you tried your hardest? Yes. Great. I am proud of you, and leave it at that.
Okay. So that brings me to my second um, parenting situation that I would love to get your advice on. My son loves basketball. He loves Michael Jordan. He loves
Cute.
the Chicago Bulls. He was born in Chicago.
Oh,
Um, he's also he never practices basketball outside of the once a week we go to the thing and to his little basketball practices. And he wants to feel like he's an amazing basketball player. And we had a situation last basketball practice where he was playing kind of against another kid who's really good at basketball. I was like, oh, okay, well, why don't you see? And I kind of set him up to engage in this little competition as like, let's see who can get more baskets, you or this other guy. And pretty soon he was, 1 point behind, and then 2 points behind, and then 3 points, and then 4
uh-oh.
points, and then 5 points behind. The kid had, sunk 6 baskets before Lake had sunk even one. And it was totally and completely demoralizing for him. And he wanted to quit the
Oh,
game.
oh, buddy.
And he's terrible. And I was saying, dude, you haven't been playing basketball all that long. Like, you're actually quite good at basketball for the amount of effort that you put into it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't having it.
Mm,
And I legitimately do not know how to deal with this situation. I'm very frustrated watching him in practice, and he goofs off and he sits down on the floor and he doesn't listen to the coach and he does a bunch of stuff that he's not supposed to do, and yet he wants to be great at basketball. And
mm.
he doesn't just want to be great at basketball. He says he's great. Oh, I'm the greatest. And it's
Love the confidence.
very difficult for me to deal with because
Yeah.
and so I don't know, I'm just really interested in your feedback on that.
I would ask you what makes it difficult for you to like observe that and deal with it.
I have a very difficult time separating my own ego from his performance and ability in sports. I never got into sports until I was much later in life, and then I was comparatively really good at volleyball, for example. Terrible at basketball, but I was really good at volleyball for the amount of training I'd ever had. And I wish that I'd gotten into volleyball when I was in 8th grade.
Mm,
And if I had been able to ignite that fire when I was much younger, my life would have been so much different and so much richer and so much better in a lot of ways. And I want that for him. And I also kind of and I have a very difficult time keeping my ego out of it too. I mean, deep
yeah.
down, I want him to be a good athlete because I want that to reflect well on me, and I
Yeah.
recognize that that's unhealthy, and I'm really trying to tamp that down.
Yeah.
But it's both things.
Well, I applaud you for your openness, for your insight, your openness, and your vulnerability in that, because I think that is so relatable with so many parents. We want our children to excel in certain things because it's something that we didn't do as a kid or didn't get to do, or we think our life would have been better if we had done this. And it's also, we take it as a reflection on who we are as parents, right? Like when my kids go into an environment and they're acting a little crazy, like I am completely mortified. And so, like their behavior, whether it be going a little crazy or like not listening to the coach and goofing off, it's so easy to take that as a message about us. And that starts a belief in us, right? Which impacts how we show up, right?
Yeah,
So my encouragement to you and other parents like in that environment is that like, this is a journey that your child gets to be on. They get to learn and understand if I'm not listening to the coach and if I'm goofing off on the ground, the coach isn't going to play me.
yeah.
If I'm not practicing outside of this learning environment, I'm not going to get better. And it's not forcing our kids to do that. It's like, you say you want to get better. So we're going outside right now with the basketball. It's like, hey, buddy, how do you think? Or, okay, so the situation where he's like super bummed about getting outshot, right?
Yeah.
So later that evening, when it's not in the moment, he's not sobbing or whatever, and he's calm and you guys are snuggling in bed together, be like, hey, buddy, how did you feel today? Like during the shoot off or whatever. He's like, I didn't feel good. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, tell me more about that. Well, he was getting more baskets than me. I'm like, yeah. And it's like, do you like, is that okay with you? Or do you want to get better? Do you like, how are you feeling about basketball? He's like, well, I want to get better. Okay. How do you think someone gets better? And don't just tell them how it is. Like, you get better if you practice. Practice makes perfect, right? Which
It's the
there is no
same thing.
perfect.
It's allowing your daughter to tie her own shoes. You're allowing her to figure
100%.
out what the process is.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you get better? Well, maybe practice. Yeah. Practice does make better. Right. And this is what I tell my kids whenever they're learning something new and it's really hard at first, which for him, he said he's kind of a natural. But I'm like, think of your brain as like two separate pieces. And I don't know how scientific this actually is, but it's a visual that helps my kids. I was like, your brain is connected by little tissues, which it is. And I was like, when you try something new, like one strand tries to like reach over to the other side of the brain and it's super hard, right? That's the first time you're doing something. But the more you do it, the easier the strands can jump across from brain to brain and it becomes easier and you become better at it. And that's what's going on in your brain when you're trying something new or you want to get better at something. Your brain has to practice that. It's just not automatically going to get those links connecting it, right? So it can be like painting this visual for this child of like, yeah, this is what it takes. You're right. Practice. If you want to practice it all, buddy, I would love to go out with you and do it. And if you don't, that's okay too. Then they get the freedom to choose. They get to the freedom. Do I want to become better at basketball? I know it's going to take practice. And if it's a no and he doesn't want to practice and he just wants to show up and goof off, then he is going to unfortunately experience the natural consequences of that, where he's not going to get played or he's going to get outshot. And then in those moments, if that does happen, it's not I told you so. You should have practiced, right? It's like, oh man, I am so sorry. That really stinks. Is there anything you want to do differently? Yeah, I think I want to practice. All right. I'm here for it. When do you want to do it? So again, it's creating a safe place for them to fail. They get to make their own choices. And our work as adults, as parents, is the work that you are seeing in yourself. Like, I see this as connected to who I'm perceiving myself to be as a parent, to my own success that I want for my kid that I'm trying to put on them. And if we can keep that at bay and let the kids make their choices and experience those consequences, you will have a kid who's just so self-aware, and you'll have a healthy relationship with your kid instead of these dynamics that you see, especially in sports, where parents are just like crazy about their kids and the kids don't even enjoy the sport anymore because they feel all this pressure, and it's just a disaster. It's not worth it
It's
to me.
so difficult, and it's like as parents, we all feel. The thing is, he's an enormous kid. I'm 6'5", and he's probably going to be 6'7" or 6'8".
Amazing. Oh my gosh.
He's and I mean, he could really go somewhere in sports,
Mm.
and I really want that for him,
Yeah, I get that.
but I can't. I just like it has to be his thing,
Yes.
and the only thing I can do is give him the fertile soil to cultivate the plants,
Yeah.
and I can give him the seeds, I can give him the water, I can give him the soil, I can give him the fertilizer, but I can't plant the plants for him. I can't grow the plants for him. I
No.
can only enable him to do it.
Yep.
And and that's the only sustainable way to do it. But one of the
Yeah.
things that you said there that I really want to call attention to is you don't have to deal with the thing in the moment.
Yes.
You don't have to. I mean, again, the reflex is to shame them. Let's connect to their shame. And oh, aren't you ashamed at
Mm,
how poorly you play basketball today because
mm.
you didn't practice? That's the reflex. You do not have to. You can do nothing but console your child in the moment.
Yeah.
And then later on, when we're all back in Sherlock brain, we can say, hey, what do you think about that? And then come up with a plan.
100%. Because in that moment, everyone's kind of like reactive, right?
Yeah.
You're having your own stuff come up. He's upset. And I hear your inclination is to shame. My inclination would be to fix it. Hey, buddy, I think we need to practice more. Let's do that. Let's go out right now and fix it. Right. And
Yeah.
so we're all
By the
like
way, I have that
reactive
one
right
too.
now.
I have that one too.
Right. Right. And so I think it's so healthy when everyone can just take a beat and revisit later. Like, a child's brain literally needs to self regulate before they can hear anything that you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great example. Like, my kids, they'll get hurt, and my youngest 7-year-old, I'm still milking it for all it's worth because he'll get hurt and it's not a hurt at all. I mean, it is, but he'll come to me like, ah. And if it's a big hurt, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Is that helpful to them in that moment?
Right.
No, it's not helpful to them. What do they just want comfort and consoling.
Yeah.
And so I just hold them. I want to know why there's this big gash on their forehead with blood dripping out. But right now they just, okay, maybe not that bad, but right now they just need mom's hug or
Yeah.
dad's hug.
Yeah.
Right. And so then when everything's calmed down, I'm like, what happened? I finally get the information that I need. Same thing in those situations. Like, they are having their own big feelings. They're dysregulated. And I think the most important thing we can remember as parents across the whole day is, if there's a lot of interactions going on, a lot of upset and whatever, take a pause, take a beat, and then revisit it later. You guys think, hey, how can we do that differently? How can we speak more kindly to our sister instead of yelling at her? Like, what would we say? What could we say instead? Because in that moment, they're not regulated enough. They cannot process that information. So yes, pause.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what what are the techniques? Are there differences in the techniques that you use with your boys versus your girls? Is there anything specific about raising boys specifically that you might call attention to here?
That's a really good question. I think I think for the most part, a lot of parenting principles are the same, right? Like they're the same. You wouldn't treat boys differently than girls. So I would almost say no. And yet I think there's something that we get to do as parents with our boys that we just have to be even more intentional about. So, like, for example, we will see these behaviors that to us are not okay. So, like, we see like this energy and competitiveness and like this. So so you're in an environment, say even school, but you're not necessarily there. Your child's school, they've got a lot of energy, they've got a lot of competitiveness. And so what does that environment say? Like, this isn't allowed here, so we need to squelch that. And this tends to be characteristics that you see more in boys, right? The energy, the whatever. And so it's like this environment that does not fit here, so we're going to stifle that. And what that does is that can then turn to aggression. They have been given this strength. They have been given this competitiveness, right? And so when we like energy and all that stuff like that is drive in men. When you have like competitiveness, that's like determination in them, right? So you see these things that can look bad on the surface and we want to shut it down as opposed to like encouraging in that. And so if we just try and stifle it and shut it down in my boys, like that'll turn into aggression. But if I can use the right words to encourage them in the things that I'm seeing, then that can turn to leadership in them. Like, hey, buddy, I see how you're trying to be really competitive right now. And like, I love this determination that I'm seeing within you. But right now, this is not the environment for that or this high energy that I'm seeing. Like, if we need to go outside and run around and do that, totally cool. But right now, we're at the dinner table and we're going to offer respect and honor to what is going on here. Right. So it's just like shaping them with our words that we encourage those things that are easy to just like cut off and stifle because we don't like it. It's not as calm and smooth as you see in our girls, right? So just realizing that some of those things are
On
part
the
of who
other
they
hand,
are
though,
as they're made up.
connected with that is that we have to also give them an outlet for those things. I mean, we can't just
Yes.
say, "Oh, well, this is not the time," and then
Yeah.
never have the time,
Yes.
right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's important to kind of recognize that go ahead and schedule the thing that, will let them get that energy out and
Yeah.
let them be boys.
Yeah. Don't let them sit in front of a TV all day playing video games, like,
Yeah.
right? Like, shut that off, get them outside running, get them, with friends, hanging out, exploring, adventuring, wrestling on the trampoline is what my 12-year-old son loves to do with his friends.
Right.
Like, and for me, I'm like, be careful, guys, don't hurt each other. But that is what they need to do. Yes, be respectful of each other. But, other than that, let them get their manly aggression out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really wise. Now, I want to ask you one more thing about what it about being the mother of boys, and especially in your situation, one of the things that motivated your entire journey here, my understanding is that you didn't want your boys and your kids to be a statistic of divorce. You
Yeah.
found yourself in a situation where you're getting divorced, and and you wanted to make sure that your kids are still going to thrive.
Yes.
And one of the ways that statistics of divorce thing manifests with boys is that before the divorce, you had a default masculine role model for your boys in your
Yeah.
husband. And now you don't. That default is gone.
Hmm.
And any even if you get remarried, that your new husband is not going to have the same relationship and not necessarily going to be able to provide that. And certainly you as a mother, you can teach them things intellectually. You can
Yeah.
explain to them how to be a good man,
Yeah.
but they will not absorb those lessons in the same way as they would if they were getting it
Experiencing it.
modeled for them.
Yeah,
So
100%.
how did you think about that? How do you manage that? And to what extent do you think you did a good job? And to what extent were things that you found out, wow, I didn't do that right?
Yeah, I'm definitely on this journey. So my sons are 7, the oldest and the youngest. So I have a 7-year-old first grader son, about to turn 8 in October, and then I have a 12 and a half-year-old son. And, he's in that preteen phase. So, he loves saying, "Mom, I'm taller than you." I'm like, "Dude, you are not taller than me yet." And then we literally measured and it was like
No.
head to head, like he is right. I was like, "How did this happen?"
Oh,
And he
no.
loves talking about his strength, and he loves talking about, like, "Look at my stash, mom." It's like, "What? What is happening? Where is my baby?"
Oh,
And he
man.
loves, like, he is proud of the young man that he is becoming,
Yeah.
and, I was like, "Dude, you have man legs. Like, what is happening?" And it's so fun, and so, I totally got off track with all of that. How do I Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. So, yes, when me and their dad divorced, they no longer had a full-time dad in the home, and then it's like, how do I fill that gap when they're here? And I think the biggest thing is, like you said, like, I am a mom, I'm a female, and I can't. And so I can do my best, like, with me. I can't, like, I can generate some masculinity within inside of me, but that's not like God's given design. Like that is not how I'm designed to flourish with my children. And so that has been, an interesting journey as it's been a topic of conversation with other single moms. And to be clear, like I am remarried, but my husband doesn't live here full time because
Mm,
he lives in another state with his daughter, right?
wow.
So even though I have this incredibly like godly, masculine, healthy masculine man who like honors me and opens doors for me and loves my kids, like they still don't have that consistency in the home when the kids are here. And so it's like, what does that look like? And you're right, like the best way that they learn is that it can be modeled. And so whenever so I go to church and our church has like home groups. And so the home groups in those families, like, they know the situation that I'm in, so the dads are more intentional, and they can be more intentional, and they've even stepped in some there's this one situation in particular where one of them stepped in, and he, like, swooped in as his father figure, and it was, like, calling, like, one of my kids up, and it was, like, so powerful.
Mm.
It's like, "This is what my kids need," and so people who you know and trust, like, giving them that voice of, like, "Hey, you can speak into my son. I actually invite it. I actually encourage it. Like, please." Or even, like, setting up times where, like, you can have, like, someone who is very trustworthy, like, take one of my sons out and hang out with them and speak life into them. And, when my husband comes into town, he is so great at being intentional with my sons and my daughters, but just being very intentional and then just lots of prayer. It's like, Lord, I realize that this is something that I don't have in this home. And so just help me to do my best to expose them to other men, godly men, and help them to see that and pick up those things. So still trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and there've been so many high profile, well publicized examples of counter examples of men who wanted to be part of children's lives in unhealthy ways,
Yeah.
or, stories of abuse and that sort of thing, and that
Yep.
that gets so much attention, and I think that, culturally, what that means is that our culture views men who are interested in the lives of boys
Mm,
with suspicion.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
that's a real problem in
Yeah.
this domain. And by the way, it is important to make sure that you're not just dropping your kids off with some
Yeah.
random guy who, who knows what the deal is. Like, and
100%.
if you get a twinge of something, like your motherly instincts are going to probably ferret that out.
Yep.
But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater there.
Yeah. So true.
I don't know of a single decent man who, when presented with the opportunity to be a role model
Hmm.
for a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old up and coming man,
Yeah.
wouldn't absolutely embrace that.
Right.
There, I
100%.
mean, literally, you could call the CEO of the biggest company where you live. You could say, listen, I've got this 12-year-old son. He really looks up to you and admires you. Would you mind taking him to lunch? And he would do it.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Absolutely, he would do it. It feeds everything that is good about masculinity and men and everything. If you were to ask, they would do it. And
Yeah.
so I just think you just need to do that. You just need to you need to realize that there is an aspect you now are not going to get all the nutrition. Your sons are not going to get all the nutrition they need, the mental and emotional nutrition they need. You're going to have to supplement that with vitamins.
Yeah.
You first have to recognize that, and then you just have to be intentional about it and give them those environments to do that. And it, might be
Yeah.
sports, it might be church groups, it might be all of those things. The institutions that used to do that in our culture and our society are now gone. You're
Yeah.
going to have to. Now, that's a bad thing in the sense that you don't get it by default anymore,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing in the sense that you get to customize the experience. So it's not a one size fits all anymore either. And so
Yeah. And
embrace that.
yeah, I would say for the moms who are hearing this and they're like, oh my gosh, there is no way that I would ever let my son hang out with another man. And I get that fear, like you said, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of negativity, but there's also so much good that can come from it. And um, I, so that part, and this is a little bit off topic, but it's all about equipping our kids, right? It's not just on you to screen the men that may have interactions with your sons. It's like, I have empowered my kids from a very young age that we have had the conversations of like, what are our body parts? What's the real name? Are these for sharing? What do you do if this happens? What do you do if this happens? If you feel any sort of uncomfortableness, like, what do you do? So like we have all those conversations. And honestly, I guess this is really on topic because, again, it is equipping our kids to be confident human beings and to know how to make right choices and right decisions. So, the same thing happens in environments where kids can get abused, is like, what has to be going on in their mind where they're so confused and they don't feel like they have a voice and they feel like they have to keep this secret from their parent because this close family friend said this is a secret and that mom and dad will be mad at you, and then they can think about truth and be like, no, I know my parents aren't, they won't get mad at me for something that's not my fault. I know my parents won't mad at me if I make a mistake. Cause a lot of people think, a lot of kids can think that like, um, that kind of abuse is their fault,
Yeah.
right? But if their parents have created such a beautiful environment at home where they can show up in their mistakes and feel loved and accepted still, then the parents are going to be that safe place for that child. And but hopefully it doesn't even get to that point and the child is equipped to fully know how to say no, how to advocate for themselves and to go in another direction when something feels shaky and not right because their parents have equipped them to do that from day one.
Yeah. I think that's perfectly stated. I always like to finish up these conversations by asking everybody the same question. I warned you that I would do this.
You did.
Um, but if there is one principle that every parent listening should consider when raising their boys, what should it be?
I mean, I don't know if you would classify this as a principle, but what I would say is just the words you speak dictate who your sons become.
I think that's a perfect principle.
So choose wisely.
I think that's exactly right. Jody, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and reminding us that one of the most powerful tools that we have as parents is something that we have every day. We have access to it all the time, and that's our words.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what people can do specifically to get more from you and to learn some of the techniques and tactics that you talk about here.
I am all about like simplicity. We as parents, we're busy. We got a lot going on, right? And so my heart is like, how can I help parents like start this journey or continue the journey that they have of yielding their words in the most positive way? And also realizing, hey, maybe what are some of the things that I'm unintentionally not doing that's hindering my children, right? So for your podcast listeners, and I know you'll put this in the show notes. So it's podcast.itsjodyhill.com. If you go there, When you fill out your information, I will give your listeners the first superpower strategy that I have to raise confident and capable kids. It'll be available in PDF and also audio format, so you can just listen to it. And I created a guide for parents. It's a simple, quick guide that's just my top confidence boosters and busters. So if you want to know right out of the bat, what are the things that I can do to start boosting my child's confidence? And what are the things that I need to stop doing that inhibits their confidence? This easy,
I
quick
have a
read
copy,
guide
and it's
is for you.
really, really good.
It is for you.
Yeah.
So, yes, that is the best place to find me. I'm on Instagram, Jody Hill Parenting. And yeah, I would just say those would be the two top places to go to find me.
Yep. And the links are absolutely in the show notes there for everybody listening. You can learn more about Jody's work in those show notes. And please check out her book, The Parent's Secret Superpower. Again, those links are in the show notes. And as always, thank you for listening to Raising Men. You are a great parent. Raising Men, produced by Phil Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph